Welcome back. Have you ever looked at a map of the world and just assumed that, with a reliable vehicle, a full tank of gas, and maybe enough free time, you could pretty much go anywhere?
Right. Anywhere that isn't actively fenced off as private property.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very common assumption. I mean, we tend to view maps as open invitations.
We do.
Yeah.
But today, we are going to challenge that assumption in a massive way. We're taking a deep dive into a wildly fascinating and highly speculative YouTube video by a creator called Ink of the Past.
And that video is titled, "What's the Real Reason Some Parts of Australia Are Off Limits?"
Yes, and it presents this completely alternative narrative about Australia. And not just its history, but its actual physical geography, its infrastructure, and these incomprehensibly huge areas of land that are strictly forbidden from public access.
It's important to set our baseline right at the top here, though. Our mission today isn't to endorse these theories as undeniable facts. We are here to impartially report on the specific claims, the visual anomalies the creator points out, and the overarching patterns they believe they've found.
Right. Think of this deep dive as a fantastic exercise in critical thinking for you, the listener.
Exactly.
It's about exploring how someone can look at the exact same publicly available data you have access to.
Like Google Earth satellite imagery.
Right, or government zoning maps, and arrive at an entirely different, almost sci-fi conclusion about what is really going on down under.
It really is a profound departure from the conventional history we're all taught. It kind of forces you to look at mundane, bureaucratic explanations and ask, wait, does that actually make sense?
Okay, let's unpack this by starting with something that sounds incredibly boring on paper, but quickly gets bizarre when you look at the scale. Fences.
Fences, yes. The video kicks off by examining Australia's massive fence systems.
According to the source, Australia has the longest single fence in the entire world. And to be clear, we aren't talking about a typical property line.
Or a neighborhood chain link, no.
No.
We are talking about a 3,488-mile-long fence.
Just wrap your head around that for a second. It is longer than the distance across the entire continental United States.
Yeah.
Just one continuous fence cutting straight across the Australian continent.
It was built back in the 1880s, and the official historical reasoning given for this monumental continent-spanning construction project to keep rabbits away from agricultural crops.
Which, sounds like a pragmatic, if slightly unhinged, solution to an agricultural pest problem. But the video's creator points out a glaring anomaly in this historical narrative.
A massive anomaly. The creator points out that before the construction of this mega fence was even finished, rabbits were already present and actively breeding on both sides of it.
So they essentially built the world's most expensive 3,000-mile-long rabbit sanctuary.
Exactly. The crops they were trying to protect were also growing on both sides. So the fence demonstrably failed at its stated purpose from the very beginning. The public complained that it was totally useless, yet the government just kept building it anyway.
And it gets weirder. Today, even though rabbits are no longer considered the apocalyptic agricultural threat they supposedly once were, the fence is still heavily maintained.
Yes, and the creator notes this maintenance costs Australian taxpayers an estimated $10 million every single year.
$10 million.
Every year, which is where the creator starts applying that critical lens. If a fence is functionally useless for its stated purpose, yet is maintained at an enormous recurring cost, it stands to reason it must serve another purpose.
And the source points out that this specific fence isn't a one-off. Australia also have the second longest fence in the world.
And a third massive fence system.
All in the same country.
Yeah.
All spanning thousands of miles. Parts of these fences are even electrified. The creator emphasizes that literally no other nation on Earth builds continental-scale fences for animal control. It is entirely unique to Australia.
That uniqueness is actually the foundation of their whole argument. The theory presented in the video is that these fences are acting as physical boundaries.
Right.
They aren't meant to keep animals out of crops. They are meant to separate huge areas of the continent for completely non-agricultural reasons that the public just isn't privy to.
They're essentially acting as massive keep-out signs, disguised as boring farm infrastructure.
Precisely. Which naturally leads to the question, what exactly is hiding behind those boundaries?
And that takes us straight into the remote Australian desert. The video's creator mentions they were scanning Google Earth for a completely different project and just stumbled upon this massive geographic oddity.
Yeah.
Sitting right there out in the middle of absolute nowhere is a formation that looks exactly like a star fort.
Now, a star fort, historically speaking, is a very specific type of complex, geometrically precise defensive structure. They usually have sharp, arrow-like bastions jutting out in a star shape to eliminate blind spots for cannons.
Very 16th century European military architecture.
Exactly. And according to official history, there are 0 records of star forts ever being built anywhere in Australia.
Let alone out in a barren, empty desert.
Right. Yet the creator insists the geometric outlines are right there on the satellite imagery. They even throw the coordinates up on the screen and invite viewers to go verify it themselves.
And this area isn't marked as inhabited. It isn't a heritage site. It isn't officially anything.
It is intensely remote. The video points out the 2 nearest towns, and we were using that word very loosely here, are Xanthus and Baladonia. They're about 2 hours north and south of this site.
And according to the source, Xanthus is basically just a lonely train station and a dirt airstrip.
And Baladonia is reportedly completely abandoned.
But to get between these 2 desolate spots, there's a highway. And this highway runs perfectly straight for 90 miles.
Right.
But it doesn't go through this star fort region. The video argues it deliberately routes around it.
The creator suggests this is a very deliberate evasion by modern infrastructure, but the anomaly they found doesn't stop at just one isolated fort.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The creator explains that when you look at this geometric star fort on Google Earth and you start to zoom out slightly, the surrounding landscape looks wrong.
Wrong? How?
The video describes it as looking bombed.
Like the footprint of a destroyed ancient city. You see what look like the foundations of shattered structures scattered across a vast area.
And when you zoom out even further, the true scale of this thing hits you. The creator points out hundreds of perfectly straight lines and massive geometric squares etched directly into the earth.
And we're talking about lines stretching for hundreds of miles.
Which the creator argues are definitively not natural geological formations.
No, nature rarely works in perfectly straight lines over hundreds of miles. These lines create a massive interconnected grid system.
And the kicker: many of these perfectly straight, hundreds of miles long lines lead directly back to that star fort,
suggesting the fort functioned as a central hub or a node for whatever this massive ancient grid system was.
The video draws a really striking parallel here. They note that this exact visual pattern, destroyed geometric structures and ancient grid lines etched into arid regions, can be found in other remote deserts all around the world.
Yes. The source compares the satellite imagery in Australia to anomalies found in the Sahara, the deserts of Arizona and California, Saudi Arabia's Empty Quarter, and the Gobi Desert.
The argument being that Australia fits perfectly into this supposed global pattern of hidden ancient civilizations that have just been paved over or fenced off.
It paints a staggering picture of an entire buried world just sitting out there, baking in the outback sun.
Of course, if you're listening to this and thinking, great, I'm going to book a flight, rent a Jeep, and go find a star fort, the video creator has some bad news for you. You can't just drive out there and start digging.
Which brings us to the video's next major pillar of evidence: the massive, unprecedented scale of legally restricted land in Australia.
At a glance, Australia is a modern, open, democratic country. But the creator argues that if you look past the tourist brochures and focus on the actual zoning maps, staggering portions of the country are legally off-limits to ordinary citizens.
The government strictly forbids entry. And the biggest, most glaring example provided by the source is the Woomera Prohibited Area.
This military zone is so incomprehensibly large, it covers a landmass roughly the size of England.
The scale of that is genuinely difficult to process. Imagine taking the entirety of England, every city, every countryside, every road, and dropping a total legally enforced military lockdown over it.
The video also points out a profound historical tragedy tied to this. Aboriginal people have lived on that specific land for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Many still do. Yet the area is functionally erased from public access by the government.
Now, the official government explanation for the Woomera Prohibited Area is that it is utilized for aerospace research, Air Force operations, and rocket testing.
But the video creator calls out what they see as a massive population paradox with that official explanation. They actually run the numbers. They look at the United States, which has a population of around 329 million people.
And Russia, which has about 145 million.
Both of those nations have massive, highly active space and military programs. Meanwhile, Australia has a population of roughly 25 million people.
Right.
Yet, according to the official narrative, Australia supposedly requires a rocket testing site larger than any other nations on Earth.
It is a glaring discrepancy. The creator argues this official narrative simply makes no logical sense, especially when you factor in that the actual functional rocket testing range only utilizes a microscopic fraction of that England-sized zone.
So the obvious question the video poses is, what is occupying the rest of that vast, heavily guarded space?
Now, to be fair, history buffs might point out that between 1956 and 1963, part of the Woomera area was actually rented out to Great Britain for nuclear weapons testing.
Which sounds like a solid reason to keep people away.
It does. But the video specifically anticipates and counters this argument. They state that the actual radioactively contaminated zone is much, much smaller than the total prohibited area.
The footprint of the nuclear tests just doesn't explain the sheer size of the overall lockdown.
Exactly.
And this lockdown is fiercely enforced. It's not just a sign on a gate. The source highlights the Stewart Highway as a prime example. This is a 1,700-kilometer road that crosses Australia from south to north.
And a section of it passes right through the Woomera prohibited area.
You are legally allowed to drive on this highway, but the rules the creator details are intensely strict. You are driving through hundreds of miles of forbidden territory, and the video emphasizes that you cannot deviate from that highway for any reason whatsoever.
Literally. You can't pull off the road to stretch your legs. You can't pull over and take a picture of a weird rock.
If your tires leave that pavement, you face severe legal consequences.
The creator hypothesizes that one reason for this extreme, almost paranoid level of secrecy might relate directly back to what we discussed earlier with the Google Earth anomalies.
The grids and the star forts.
Exactly. The video claims the Woomera area is filled with those exact same ancient lines, grid patterns, and artificial structures, things that are never mentioned in historical textbooks, media, or by the government.
The theory the video pushes is that modern military installations are deliberately built directly on top of these ancient sites to conceal them, or perhaps even to secretly research and repurpose them.
And the Woomera site isn't the only example the creator provides for this base on top of ruins theory.
Right, because just a few hundred miles north of Woomera sits another highly restricted military facility, Pine Gap.
Located near Alice Springs, the video describes Pine Gap as a joint defense facility that is mostly built underground.
It's surrounded by a massive area of completely off-limits land, and it is covered by a very strict no-fly zone. The government is notoriously tight-lipped about what actually happens there.
But the creator takes a different approach to investigating it. They point out that Australia literally publishes a map of its drone no-fly zones for the public.
And the video argues this map essentially acts as a modern-day treasure map.
Precisely. It shows you exactly where the government aggressively doesn't want anyone looking from above. Huge areas around Pine Gap, the Woomera region, and the Starfort area we mentioned earlier are all highlighted as heavily restricted airspace.
But the creator didn't just look at the airspace map. They looked at the ground.
What's fascinating here is the specific visual evidence the creator claims to have isolated at Pine Gap. They state that if you examine the modern facility very closely on Google Earth, you can see that the paved roads leading to the base appear to be built perfectly on top of much older, faintly visible ancient roadways.
The source claims you can clearly see the traces of these older dirt roads continuing out into the desert, right past where the modern asphalt just abruptly ends.
Furthermore, the video highlights a very specific, highly symmetric X symbol etched into the landscape near Pine Gap.
And we aren't talking about two intersecting dirt roads here. This is a massive geometric X visible from orbit.
The creator notes that this exact same geometric X symbol appears at various ancient, unexplained sites all around the world. And to tie it all together, they point out that a partially covered version of this exact same symbol can be spotted inside the Woomera region as well.
It is such a wild cinematic concept. These high-tech, deeply classified underground military bases sitting right on top of ancient, unexplained ruins.
It certainly makes for a compelling narrative, but the video's creator doesn't stop at the deserts. They argue the restrictions apply to the oceans, too.
Right. The video moves offshore to look at a place called Heard Island. This is an external territory of Australia, located way out in the ocean, basically halfway between Madagascar and Antarctica.
It is incredibly remote and completely uninhabited, and you cannot go there without explicit government permission.
The official reason given is environmental protection and scientific research, which, for a pristine sub-Antarctic island, sounds completely reasonable.
Until the video points out a very strange digital anomaly regarding Heard Island.
This completely empty freezing rock with zero human population has its own unique internet domain country code, .htm.
Now, a top-level domain isn't just a string of letters. It requires administration, registration protocols, and usually local physical servers to maintain it. Why would a barren rock with no people on it need its own dedicated internet domain infrastructure?
Unless the penguins are secretly coding down there, it makes no sense. The creator views this as a massive bureaucratic red flag.
They argue that environmental protection is frequently used as a convenient, unquestionable cover story to restrict public access to areas of interest.
And they apply this exact same logic back to the mainland, specifically looking at Australia's national parks.
The video suggests that many of these parks have unusually strict, almost militant rules. Visitors are heavily monitored, photography is banned in certain sectors, and all heavy machinery is strictly prohibited.
They highlight Elliott Price National Park as the most extreme example of this. The rule for Elliott Price National Park isn't just stay on the trail, it's a total ban. No visitors allowed, ever.
Now, the video does try to maintain some balance here. The creator concedes that some of this could genuinely just be well-meaning officials trying to protect incredibly fragile habitats.
Yeah, the creator even admits they checked Elliott Price National Park on Google Earth and honestly didn't see anything obviously unusual there.
But they argue that the established track record of other restricted areas makes the environmental protection excuse highly suspicious by default.
And they back that up with a great example. They point to a specific strip of coastal land south of Melbourne. According to the source, the reason this specific area is off limits keeps conveniently changing every decade or so.
It's the shifting narrative that the creator finds so revealing.
Right. First, the public was told they couldn't go there because it contained underground military bases. Then, a few years later, the story suddenly changed. The government said it was restricted because of alleged unexploded landmines.
And now it is officially classified as a protected national park.
If the justification for keeping the public out constantly shifts from military to danger to environmental, it heavily suggests the true reason is just being hidden behind whatever excuse works best at the time.
Which brings the video's argument to the Nullarbor National Park.
The source describes this area as vast, completely flat land stretching along the southern coast.
There are no modern roads other than the one main highway cutting through it. There are no towns, there are no trees, there are no hills.
The creator says the landscape looks as if it were flattened by a mass of iron. Just a completely barren, featureless, empty dirt wasteland.
But here's the catch that the video highlights. The entire area is covered by a strict no-fly zone. You are absolutely forbidden from flying a drone anywhere over it.
The creator asks the most obvious question. If there is literally nothing out there but flat, barren dirt, why is the government so utterly terrified of someone taking aerial photos of it?
According to the creator's overarching theory, the drone ban exists because if you were to fly a high-resolution camera over that supposedly empty land, you wouldn't just see dirt. You would photograph perfectly straight, ancient lines running through the landscape, lines that were clearly not built by modern hands.
The video argues that because only the government is legally allowed to capture aerial footage of these zones, the public is forced to rely entirely on officially sanctioned, heavily curated satellite images.
Images which, theoretically, can easily be edited to omit or obscure these ancient grid systems before they are uploaded to public platforms.
So what does this all mean? When you pull together all the threads from this single YouTube video, the creator's ultimate premise is quite staggering.
They are arguing that despite presenting itself to the world as a modern, open democracy, massive portions of Australia are, in stark reality, functionally forbidden territory.
The source claims that the staggering, England-sized off-limits military areas, the unexplainable drone bans over barren dirt flatlands, and the $10 million a year continental fences that demonstrably do not stop rabbits, they are all part of an elaborate, multifaceted cover-up.
The true purpose of all this varied restriction, according to the video, is singular: to conceal massive, ancient geometric grid systems, star forts, and structures that would completely rewrite our entire understanding of human history.
It is a lot to take in.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this video serves as a genuinely fascinating study in how official narratives can be successfully scrutinized by everyday people.
Because the creator isn't using classified leaks, they're using public data.
Exactly. The creator's entire argument rests on the assertion that the official answers simply don't withstand basic logical questioning. Why build continental fences that rabbits just hop around? Why restrict airspace over hundreds of miles of empty flatlands? Why does a country of 25 million people need the largest prohibited military zone on the planet?
It's the friction between the mundane excuse and the extreme action.
Precisely. The video argues that because the mundane explanations fall apart so quickly under scrutiny, the real answers must be something incredibly significant. Significant enough to spend millions of dollars and permanently lock away vast territories from the public eye.
It really makes you rethink the way we view maps, borders, and authority.
This raises an important question about how public policy is documented and justified. It challenges us to consider how much of our supposedly accessible world might actually be functionally walled off under the guise of incredibly boring bureaucratic explanations like pest control, wildlife preservation, or vague military testing.
The video heavily suggests that the biggest secrets aren't hidden in dark rooms. They are hidden right out in the open, just buried under administrative paperwork and zoning laws.
It is a framework for looking at the world that really stays with you, regardless of whether you actually buy into the theory of ancient hidden grids.
Totally. It completely changes how you look at a standard satellite map. And as we wrap up this deep dive into Ink of the Past's theories, I want to leave you, the listener, with a lingering thought to ponder on your own.
Because the tools the creator used are available to all of us.
Exactly. If the creator of this video is right, that massive geometric grids, perfectly straight ancient lines, and ruined structures in remote deserts are visible to absolutely anyone with an internet connection on Google Earth. What unexplained anomalies might be hiding in plain sight in the satellite imagery of your own local, supposedly empty spaces?
All it takes is a little zooming in.
Until next time, keep questioning the map and keep exploring.